Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the crystal halls of the Galactic Federation station with practiced ease. Her shoes made soft sounds on the polished floor as she carried her documents to another peace meeting. This was her life now, and she loved it. Elena had been Earth's chief diplomat for 12 years. In that time, she had stopped 3 wars, settled dozens of trade disputes, and helped write new laws that protected smaller species from bigger ones. Other aliens often said the same thing about humans. They were the best at finding peaceful answers to hard problems. The meeting room was already full when Elena arrived. She nodded to her friends from different worlds. There was Ambassador Corac from the Rigel Mining Collective, his blue skin shining under the lights. Next to him sat Trade Minister Solana from the Vega Commerce Guild, her forearms busy sorting through data tablets. At the far end of the table, Elder Thorpe from the Kepler Agricultural Worlds smiled at Elena with his large, gentle eyes. Elena sat in her usual chair between the Kepler representative and the mediator's position. Humans always sat there, in the middle, ready to help others find common ground. It was where they belonged in this galaxy. "Welcome, friends," said Station Commander Zilf, a tall alien with silver skin who ran the meeting. "Today we discuss the mining rights dispute between the Rigel Collective and the Tau Mining Corporation." Elena opened her files and began to read. The problem was simple but messy. Both groups wanted to mine the same asteroid belt. The Rigel people said they found it first. The Tau Corporation said they had better equipment and could do the job faster. Neither side wanted to share. For most species in the galaxy, this would lead to fighting. Some aliens settled disputes with their weapons. Others used economic war to hurt their enemies. A few species would have sent battle fleets to claim the asteroids by force, but humans were different. Earth had learned long ago that fighting only made problems bigger. Elena's people had a gift for seeing what both sides really needed and finding ways to give it to them. "May I suggest something?" Elena said after listening to both sides argue for an hour. The room went quiet. When humans spoke at these meetings, everyone listened. The Rigel Collective needs steady income for their colony ships. The Tau Corporation wants to prove their new mining technology works better than old methods. What if we split the asteroid belt into 2 zones? Rigel gets the larger zone with more common metals they can sell easily. Tau gets the smaller zone with rare metals that will test their new equipment. Commander Zilf nodded slowly. "And the profits? 60% to Rigel, 40% to Tau, with Tau getting bonuses if their technology proves more efficient than expected. If it works, they share the technology with Rigel in exchange for access to more mining sites." Elena watched as both sides thought about her idea. This was what humans did best. They found the thing under the thing. Most species saw only the fight over who got what. Humans saw what each side really wanted and built deals that gave everyone their real needs. Ambassador Corac spoke first. "This could work. Our colonies need steady metal supplies more than maximum profits." Trade Minister Solana leaned forward. "And we need proof our new extraction methods work in real conditions. The rare metals would provide that test." Elena smiled. Another problem solved without anyone firing a shot or breaking a trade agreement. Earth would be proud. After the meeting ended, Elder Thorpe approached Elena's desk. The Kepler were Elena's favorite aliens to work with. They looked something like deer that walked on 2 legs, with soft fur and large, kind eyes. Their homeworlds grew the best food in the galaxy, and they shared it freely with anyone who asked. "Ambassador Elena," Thorpe said in his gentle voice, "I wanted to thank you again for helping us with the water rights issue last month." "It was my pleasure, Elder Thorpe. How are your people doing?" "Very well. The new irrigation systems are working perfectly. Our harvest this season will be the biggest ever." Thorpe's eyes sparkled with happiness. "In fact, we are so grateful that our High Council wants to invite a group of humans to visit our primary world. We want to show you our greatest farms and share our best foods with you." Elena felt warmth spread through her chest. The Kepler were offering something special. They rarely invited aliens to their homeworlds, and never to their primary planet where their most important farms grew. This was a huge honor. "That sounds wonderful. I will speak with Earth about sending a delegation." "Excellent. I will send you the coordinates and details. Thorpe paused. You humans are truly remarkable. In all my years of diplomatic service, I have never seen another species work so hard to help others find peace. Elena watched the gentle alien walk away and felt pride in her people. Humans had come so far from their early days. Once, her species had been warriors who fought terrible wars with each other. They had built weapons that could destroy entire planets. They had been angry, violent, and afraid, but that was the past. Modern humans had learned better ways. They had turned their warrior instincts into protective instincts. They had changed their gift for strategy from planning battles to planning peace. They had evolved beyond their violent nature into something better. The galaxy was lucky to have humans as its peacekeepers. Elena believed that, with all her heart, in a universe full of species that still settled disputes with force, Earth provided the wisdom to find better ways. She gathered her things and headed back to her quarters. Tomorrow would bring new meetings, new problems to solve, and new chances to prove that civilization was stronger than savagery. Elena looked forward to it. Outside the station's great windows, stars shone peacefully in the dark. Among them, Earth's sun was too far away to see. But Elena knew it was there, home to a species that had learned to be better than its nature. Home to the galaxy's conscience. Elena had no way of knowing that in just 3 days, everything would change. She had no idea that her people's greatest test was coming, or that the peaceful reputation they had built would face a challenge that would force them to remember what they truly were beneath all their civilization. The stars continued to shine, keeping their secrets for a little while longer. Elena woke to the sound of alarms screaming through the station. Red lights flashed in her quarters as the emergency communication system activated. She stumbled out of bed, her heart already racing as she pulled on her diplomatic uniform. All senior staff report to the main command center immediately, the station's computer voice announced. Priority Alpha emergency. All senior staff report immediately. Elena ran through the corridors, joining other ambassadors and station personnel, rushing toward the command center. She had never heard a Priority Alpha alarm before. In 12 years of service, the highest alert she had experienced was Priority Beta, and that was only for a small terrorist attack that killed 30 people. The command center was chaos. Dozens of aliens stood around the main display screen, talking in urgent whispers. Commander Zilf stood at the control panel, his silver skin pale with stress. When he saw Elena, he gestured for her to come forward. Ambassador Vasquez, thank the stars you're here. We need human insight on this situation. What's happening? Elena asked. Show her the transmission, Zilf said to his communications officer. The main screen came to life with an image that made Elena's blood freeze. It was Elder Thorpe. But something was terribly wrong. The gentle Kepler diplomat was tied to a chair, his soft fur matted with blood. His large eyes, usually so kind, were filled with terror. Standing behind him was General Corac of the Corac Empire. The Corac were a warrior species, tall and muscular with gray skin and sharp teeth. They controlled a dozen systems through military might. But they had always stayed within galactic law. Brutal, yes, but not criminals. People of the galaxy, Corac said, his voice deep and harsh. For too long, you have been weak. You have let soft species like these plant-eaters take up space that warrior races deserve. You have listened to humans speak of peace while strong races grow hungry for proper territory. Elena's hands began to shake. She looked at Elder Thorpe on the screen, remembering their conversation just days ago about the Harvest Festival, about showing humans their beautiful farms. Today, the Corac Empire begins the expansion our people have earned through strength. We start by removing the weakness that infects this galaxy. We begin with the Kepler worlds. The screen changed to show orbital views of Kepler Prime, the agricultural world that Elder Thorpe had been so excited to show human visitors. Elena could see Corac warships in formation above the planet. For the next 72 hours, you will watch as we cleanse 17 worlds of Kepler weakness. We will broadcast every moment, so you can see what happens to species that choose farms over armies. Watch and learn what true strength looks like. The transmission shifted to show the surface of Kepler Prime. Elena saw Corac soldiers moving through farming communities. She watched as they herded Kepler families into central areas. Then the screen showed something that made Elena's stomach turn. The Corac were not using quick weapons. They were not shooting the Kepler or bombing them from orbit. Instead, they were releasing something into the air. A green gas that made the Kepler fall to the ground in agony. Elena watched gentle beings who had never hurt anyone writhing on the ground, crying out in pain as the poison destroyed them from inside. Bioweapons, whispered Ambassador Corac, banned by every galactic treaty. This is a war crime of the highest order. Elena watched the screen, unable to look away as Kepler children ran from the green clouds, only to fall just like their parents. She saw Elder Thorpe's homeworld burning, while its people died in the most painful way possible. "Turn it off," someone said. But Commander Zilf shook his head. "Corac is broadcasting this to every inhabited system in the galaxy. He wants us to watch. He wants us to see what he's doing." For the next 3 hours, Elena stood in the command center and watched 17 Kepler worlds die. The Corac moved with methodical efficiency, landing on planet after planet, releasing their poison gas, then moving on. They showed no mercy to anyone. Old Kepler, young Kepler, even the baby animals on the farms. Everything died. Other species began arriving at the station as word spread. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation was called for that afternoon. Elena sat in her usual chair. But everything felt different now. The room that had hosted peaceful negotiations for decades was now filled with shocked and angry aliens demanding action. "This is an outrage," declared Ambassador Corac. "The Corac must face immediate consequences." "We should impose the strongest economic sanctions possible," said Trade Minister Solana. "Cut them off from all galactic commerce." "Military intervention," growled General Thatch from the Centauri Defense League. "This cannot stand." Commander Zilf looked around the room. "What does Earth propose? Humanity has always led our response to galactic crises." Everyone turned to look at Elena. She tried to speak, but no words came out. In her mind, she kept seeing Elder Thorpe's terrified face, kept hearing his gentle voice talking about harvest festivals and sharing food with friends. "Ambassador Vasquez?" Commander Zilf asked again. Elena finally found her voice. But it sounded strange, even to her. "Humanity requests a 48-hour recess to consult with Earth." Quote. The room erupted in surprised voices. Humans never asked for delays in crisis situations. They were always ready with immediate diplomatic solutions. "Surely we need to respond now," insisted General Thatch. "Every hour we wait sends the message that this behavior is acceptable." Elena stood up slowly. Her hands were still shaking, and she felt something cold growing in her chest. 48 hours, she repeated. "Humanity needs to discuss options with our home government." She walked out of the meeting room without another word. Behind her, she could hear the other aliens talking in confused whispers. They were wondering what was wrong with the humans. Why weren't Earth's diplomats taking charge of the peaceful response like they always did? In her quarters, Elena opened a secure communication link to Earth. Within minutes, she was connected to Prime Minister Chen in Geneva. "Elena," Chen said, and Elena could see the strain on the leader's face. "We've been watching the transmissions. The whole planet has been watching. What are our orders, Prime Minister?" Chen was quiet for a long moment. "Tell the Federation we need time to prepare our response. Tell them. Tell them that humanity is considering all options." "What does that mean?" "It means," Chen said quietly, "that for the first time in 300 years, Earth is remembering what we were before we chose to be civilized." Elena closed the communication and sat alone in her quarters. Outside her window, she could see the ships of other species arriving at the station, ready to discuss sanctions and diplomatic protests and strongly worded condemnations. None of them understood yet that civilization was about to end. On Earth, the broadcasts from the Kepler worlds played on every screen in every city. Humans watched in their homes, in their offices, in the streets where public displays showed the gentle beings they had grown to love, dying in agony. For the first time in centuries, humanity saw innocent friends being murdered, and something deep inside them began to stir. Prime Minister Chen stood before the Global Assembly in Geneva, looking out at representatives from every nation on Earth. The Great Hall was silent except for the soft sounds of people breathing and the distant hum of the building's systems. On the screens around the room, the final moments of the Kepler genocide played without sound. Members of the Assembly, Chen began, her voice steady but carrying something new underneath. For 300 years, we have been the galaxy's peacekeepers. We have been diplomats, mediators, and moral guides. We have shown the universe our best face. She gestured to the screens, showing dead Kepler farms. We made a choice long ago to be civilized. To control our nature. To be better than what we were. But civilization was always a choice, not our true nature. In the audience, people began to shift in their seats. Some were crying as they watched images of Kepler children running from poison gas. Others sat with their hands clenched into fists. The Corac have reminded us what happens when civilization fails, Chen continued. They have shown us what becomes of innocence when evil chooses to act without restraint. They have murdered our friends while we slept safely in our beds, protected by the very peace we helped create. Chen paused and looked directly into the cameras broadcasting to the world. I have received communications from every major government on Earth, from every military academy, from every defense research facility. They all ask the same question. How long do we keep pretending to be something we're not? In living rooms across the planet, families watched their leaders speak. In retirement homes, old soldiers who had fought humanity's last wars 3 centuries ago sat up straighter in their chairs. In sealed military facilities, computers began unlocking files that had been classified for generations. The Galactic Federation expects us to respond with diplomatic protests and economic sanctions, Chen said. They expect us to write strongly worded letters and pass toothless resolutions. They expect us to be civilized while children burn. The Prime Minister's voice grew harder. But civilization is a luxury that the Corac have taken away. They have reminded us that the galaxy is not a safe place filled with reasonable people. It is a dangerous place where evil sometimes wins, unless good people are willing to do terrible things to stop it. In the deep storage facilities beneath the Swiss Alps, automated systems began powering up manufacturing equipment that had been dormant for centuries. Robot workers started pulling dust covers off machines designed to build weapons of war. In the Australian outback, sealed bunkers opened their doors for the first time in 300 years. I am therefore announcing that Earth is implementing Emergency Protocol 7, Chen said. And across the planet, people drew in sharp breaths. Protocol 7 was theoretical, something from old textbooks that no one thought would ever be used. All military research and development is being declassified and moved to active status. All defense manufacturing is being brought online. All retired military personnel are being recalled to active duty, and all ethical restraints on military operations against hostile alien forces are hereby suspended. The Global Assembly erupted in voices, but Chen raised her hand for silence. Let me be clear about what this means, she said. For 3 centuries, we have kept our true capabilities hidden from the galaxy. We let them think we were soft philosophers who had forgotten how to fight. We let them believe that peace was our nature instead of our choice. Chen turned to gesture at a screen showing Elder Thorpe's dead world. The Corac made a mistake. They thought we were weak because we chose not to be strong. They thought we had forgotten how to be monsters because we chose to be gardeners instead. In London, Admiral Sarah Mackenzie received a communication that pulled her out of retirement. She had been teaching history at the Imperial War College, sharing stories of humanity's ancient conflicts with students who thought war was something from the distant past. Now she found herself called back to service as the supreme commander of something that hadn't existed for centuries. The human war fleet. In Moscow, Dr. Vladimir Petrov unlocked the biological warfare research he had spent his life trying to forget. For 300 years, humanity had banned such weapons as too horrible to use. But the Corac had used them first. And now the rules had changed. In Washington, General Marcus Stone found himself in charge of activating sleeper agents that had been placed throughout the galaxy generations ago. What other species thought were human diplomats, traders, and cultural attachés were actually intelligence operatives who had been gathering information for centuries. Some of you will ask if this is what we should become, Chen said to the Global Assembly. Some will wonder if we should remain civilized, while evil acts without restraint. Let me answer that question. The Prime Minister's voice became something that humanity hadn't heard from their leaders for 300 years. The voice of a predator that had decided to hunt. We tried being civilized. We tried showing the galaxy a better way. We tried proving that peace was stronger than war. And what did we get? We got to watch our friends die screaming while we debated the proper diplomatic response. Chen looked directly into the cameras. So now, we stop being civilized. We stop pretending that we're not what we are. We stop acting like sheep when the wolves are among us. Around the world, humans began remembering things their species had tried to forget. They remembered that they were persistence hunters who could chase prey across continents. They remembered that they were pack animals who could coordinate attacks across vast distances. They remembered that they were tool users who could turn anything into a weapon. Most importantly, they remembered that they were a species that had conquered their own planet through superior tactics, overwhelming determination, and the willingness to do whatever it took to protect their own. The Corac wanted to teach the galaxy about strength, Chen said. They wanted to show everyone what happens when civilization fails. Very well. Earth accepts their lesson. Now we'll teach them what happens when humans stop trying to be civilized. The session ended, and across Earth, humanity began the transformation from peaceful diplomats back into what they had always been underneath. The most successful predator species their planet had ever produced. In space stations throughout the galaxy, human diplomats received new orders. Their mission was no longer to keep the peace. Their mission was to win a war. And for the first time in centuries, humans were very good at following those kinds of orders. Admiral Sarah Mackenzie stood on the bridge of the EFS Retribution, humanity's first warship to be built in 3 centuries. Around her, displays showed the positions of what the galaxy had thought was impossible. A human battle fleet of 200 ships, appearing as if from nowhere. The other species had been shocked when Earth's exploration vessels suddenly sprouted weapon systems. What they had thought were scientific research ships revealed themselves as dual-purpose vessels designed for both peace and war. The galaxy learned that humans had never stopped preparing for conflict. They had simply hidden their preparations behind scientific missions. Admiral, reported Captain Torres from the communications station, we're receiving surrender requests from 18 Corac outposts across the sector. Mackenzie looked at the tactical display. In just 2 weeks, her fleet had swept through the outer edges of Corac territory like a storm. The Corac had expected other aliens to fight like they always did, ship against ship, planet against planet, following the old rules of galactic warfare. Instead, they faced something completely different. Human warfare was not about honor or glory or proving strength. It was about ending the enemy's ability to cause harm as quickly and efficiently as possible. Decline the surrenders, Mackenzie said quietly. Continue the mission. The mission was simple. Complete destruction of every Corac military asset, government facility, and weapons production center in the galaxy. Earth had decided that a species willing to commit genocide could never be allowed to threaten anyone again. On the planet Corac Prime, General Corac found himself facing something he had never seen before. Human soldiers moved through his cities like ghosts, appearing and disappearing without warning. They used tactics he couldn't understand, striking at targets he hadn't even known were important. Humans didn't fight like other aliens. They didn't challenge enemies to honorable combat or try to capture territory for themselves. Instead, they systematically destroyed everything that kept Corac civilization functioning. Power plants exploded, communication networks went dark, supply depots burned, government buildings collapsed. Worst of all, the humans seemed to know everything about Corac society. They knew which leaders were important and where they lived. They knew which facilities produced weapons and which ones produced food. They knew the layout of every military base and the location of every hidden bunker. What Corac didn't understand was that humans had been gathering this information for centuries. Every human diplomat, trader, and cultural exchange student had also been an intelligence agent. While they smiled and shook hands and signed peace treaties, they had been mapping out every alien society in perfect detail. Dr. Petrov's biological warfare team struck at the Corac food supply. But unlike the Corac's brutal poison gas, the human weapon was precise. It targeted only Corac biology, and it didn't cause pain. It simply made Corac crops fail to grow, forcing the warrior race to surrender or starve. The psychological warfare was even more effective. Humans spread word throughout the Corac Empire about what was coming next. They broadcast messages to Corac colonies, explaining that their government had murdered innocent children and that Earth would not stop until every person responsible was dead. The effect was devastating. Corac colonies began declaring independence from their own government. Client species that had served the Empire for generations rose up in rebellion. Within a month, the Corac found themselves fighting not just humans, but their own former subjects. Captain Lisa Wang commanded the operation that destroyed the Corac's ability to make war. Her ships didn't attack planets directly. Instead, they targeted the space infrastructure that held the Empire together: communication satellites, orbital shipyards, supply stations. Everything that allowed the Corac to coordinate their military forces. "Target the shipyard at Corac Station 7, Wang ordered. "Precision strike. No survivors." Her weapons officer hesitated. "Captain, that station has civilian workers." "Those civilian workers built the ships that carried bioweapons to innocent farms," Wang replied. Fire. This was what terrified the rest of the galaxy. Humans fought with a cold efficiency that other species couldn't match. They didn't get angry and make mistakes like most warrior races. They didn't fight for glory or territory like the military species. They simply identified what needed to be destroyed and destroyed it. Without emotion or hesitation, the Corac military tried to adapt, but humans had centuries of experience fighting against their own kind, the most dangerous opponents they had ever faced. Every tactic the Corac attempted, humans had already seen and learned to counter. When the Corac used their faster ships to hit human targets and run, humans responded with swarm tactics that surrounded entire star systems. When the Corac tried to hide their leaders in secret bunkers, humans used intelligence networks to find them within hours. When the Corac attempted to use hostages, humans simply continued their attacks, stating that the Corac had already demonstrated they would murder innocents anyway. Admiral Mackenzie received reports from across the battle zone. Human forces had adapted their tactics to each situation, using whatever method was most effective. In some systems, they fought space battles. In others, they used economic warfare to collapse Corac's supply lines. In the most heavily defended areas, they turned the Corac's own client species against them. "Admiral," reported Commander Park, "Corac's Central Command is requesting a meeting to discuss terms of surrender." Mackenzie looked at the tactical display. The Corac Empire was collapsing faster than anyone had thought possible. Their military was scattered, their government was in hiding, and their people were turning against them. "What terms are they offering?" she asked. "Full reparations to the survivors of the genocide, war crimes trials for their leadership, and permanent disarmament under galactic supervision." Mackenzie thought about Elder Thorpe and the gentle Kepler who had died in agony while the galaxy debated diplomatic responses. She thought about the children who had run from poison gas while their parents burned. She thought about the harvest festivals that would never happen again. "Decline," she said. "Continue the operation." "Admiral," Commander Park said carefully, "the rest of the galaxy is calling for us to accept the surrender. They're saying we've made our point." Mackenzie turned to look at her subordinate. "Commander, the point we're making is this. Genocide has consequences. Complete consequences. The Corac chose to murder innocents. They chose to broadcast it to the galaxy. They chose to show everyone what happens when civilization fails." She gestured to the display showing human fleets moving through Corac space like a plague of mechanical locusts, consuming everything military and leaving only civilian populations behind. Now they get to learn what happens when humans stop being civilized. The war continued. Not because humans enjoyed fighting, but because they had learned the most important lesson of their violent history. When dealing with true evil, half measures only delay the next atrocity. The only way to protect innocents from genocidal madness was to remove the madmen completely. And humans were very, very good at removing problems completely. 6 months after the genocide, the Corac Empire no longer existed. Their homeworld was still inhabited, but only by civilians under direct human supervision. Their military was gone, their government dissolved, and their leaders were dead. Every person who had participated in or celebrated the murder of the Kepler people had been found and eliminated with methodical precision. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the rebuilt Galactic Federation station. But everything was different now. The hallways were the same, the meeting rooms looked identical, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Where once there had been casual conversations between species, now there were careful, respectful distances. Elena herself was different too. The scar across her left cheek was a reminder of the boarding action she had led against a Corac supply depot. For 6 months, Earth's diplomats had also been its soldiers. The galaxy had learned that human ambassadors could switch from peace negotiations to military operations without missing a beat. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation was larger than usual. Representatives from 200 species filled the Great Hall, all of them there to witness the signing of the new Galactic Accord. Elena took her seat, but it was no longer between the mediator and the peacemakers. Her chair was now positioned where the most powerful military species sat. Commander Zilf called the session to order, his silver skin still pale after months of stress. The station commander had aged visibly since watching the human war machine tear through space. He had seen what happened when the galaxy's peacekeepers decided to stop keeping peace. "We gather today to formalize the new Galactic Accord," Zilf announced, "the document that will govern relationships between species in the aftermath of the Corac War." Elena stood to address the assembly. The hall went completely silent when she spoke. In 6 months, the galaxy had learned to pay very close attention to what humans said. The old Galactic Federation was built on the idea that all species were basically reasonable, Elena began. It assumed that everyone wanted peace, that conflicts could be solved with discussion, and that civilization was stronger than savagery. She looked around the room at faces both familiar and new. Many species that had stayed neutral during the war were now eager to sign treaties with Earth. The Corac proved those assumptions wrong. Elena continued, "They showed us that some species choose evil. They demonstrated that civilization means nothing to those who prefer murder. They taught us that peaceful beings cannot remain peaceful when confronted with genuine monsters." Elena gestured to a display showing the memorial gardens that now covered the former Kepler worlds. Human terraforming ships had turned the dead planets into living monuments, with forests and farms growing where poison gas had once killed everything. Earth learned something from this experience. We learned that our peaceful nature was a luxury we could afford only because we were strong enough to defend it. We learned that being civilized means being willing to fight for civilization when it is threatened. Admiral Mackenzie, still in her military uniform, stood to join Elena at the podium. The sight of the two women together, diplomat and warrior united, sent a clear message to the galaxy. The new Galactic Accord includes several changes from the old Federation Charter, Mackenzie said. First, genocide is now classified as an automatic declaration of war against all member species. Second, any government that uses banned weapons against civilians forfeits its right to exist. Third, Earth assumes responsibility for enforcing these new laws. Murmurs ran through the assembly. Some species were relieved that someone would protect them from future Corac-style attacks. Others were nervous about giving humans so much power. "We don't want to be your warriors," Elena said, her voice carrying both sadness and determination. "We preferred being your healers, your mediators, your friends. But we have learned that friendship means being willing to protect your friends when they cannot protect themselves." She pulled out the treaty document, her hand steady despite the weight of what she was signing. "The Kepler were our friends. They trusted us with their home coordinates. They invited us to see their most precious places. They died believing that we would help them." Elena's voice became harder. "We failed them because we believed that diplomatic protests and economic sanctions could stop evil. We learned that some problems can only be solved with superior firepower and the will to use it. Trade Minister Solana from the Vega Commerce Guild stood up. Ambassador Vasquez, what assurance do we have that Earth won't become like the Corac? What prevents you from deciding that other species need to be removed? Elena looked at the Trade Minister for a long moment. The same thing that prevented us from becoming conquerors for the past 3 centuries. Choice. We choose to be protectors instead of predators. But that choice depends on others choosing to be civilized. Admiral Mackenzie stepped forward. Let me be absolutely clear about Earth's position. We will defend any species that chooses peace. We will protect any government that respects the rights of other beings. We will stand guard over the innocent and the weak. Mackenzie's voice became cold. But if any species chooses genocide, if any government decides to murder civilians, if anyone thinks they can repeat what the Corac did, they will learn what happens when humans stop being civilized. The vote on the new Galactic Accord was unanimous. Every species present signed the treaty that fundamentally changed how the galaxy worked. Earth became the official protector of galactic peace, with the authority to use any means necessary against species that committed crimes against sentient life. After the ceremony, Elena walked to the memorial section of the station. There, in a quiet garden, stood a statue of Elder Thorpe. The gentle Kepler diplomat was depicted offering a bowl of grain to an unseen friend, just as he had done with human visitors so many times. At the base of the statue, words were carved in both human and Kepler script. Never again means never again. Elena touched the memorial and spoke quietly to the stone figure. We kept our promise, old friend. It took us too long, and we should have acted sooner. But we kept it. Behind her, Admiral Mackenzie approached silently. The 2 women stood together in the memorial garden, representing the 2 faces of humanity that the galaxy now knew, the healers and the warriors, united in their commitment to protect the innocent. Do you think we did the right thing? Elena asked. Mackenzie was quiet for a moment, looking at Elder Thorpe's statue. The right thing would have been stopping the Corac before they murdered 4 billion innocents. What we did was the necessary thing. Elena nodded. The galaxy fears us now. Good, Mackenzie replied. Fear makes people think twice before doing terrible things. The Corac weren't afraid of anyone, and look what happened. Elena looked out through the station's windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere among those points of light was Earth, home to a species that had learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes, civilization could only be preserved by those willing to abandon it temporarily. The galaxy was safer now. It was also a more dangerous place for anyone who thought they could prey on the innocent. Earth had become the guardian that it had never wanted to be, watching over a universe where peace existed because those who chose war knew exactly what the consequences would be. Elder Thorpe's statue smiled in the starlight, finally at peace.